All right. Well, welcome back to, now we have a name for this podcast and we've called it Game On. Life, Leadership, and Laughs. Moustafa gets credit for coming up with this. He actually had it on day one. We went through a whole rigmarole, but we've ended up where Moustafa wanted to be, but we love it. All right.
What can I say?
Huh? What can you say? But wait. Before that, let me introduce you. Don't be fooled by the frown. Behind that poker face is a guy loving every minute. Moustafa, the man who invests in irony and ROI. No? Is it landing? Is it landing or is it not? If you hear a dark joke, followed by an uncomfortable truth, that's Fahmi, serial builder, part-time roaster, and full-time contrarian.
Thank you.
Is it better the second time?
Thank you.
And I am. Some call me the moderator. Others call me the human mic. He's always on, always connecting the dots. Give it up for
Abhishek.
Thank you. So guys, kick things off.
We have a theme going.
We have a theme, right? We're going to start lively. So what's the weirdest thing you believed as a kid? Just to sort of kick us off here today. No?
Yeah.
I can jump in. I remember when I broke my hand, I was 11 years old and I was in the hospital saying you broke your hand. And in my head, I thought breaking your hand means they had to cut your hand off. And I was freaking out and running the hospital. It always been like if you break something, they cut it off. And that was weird. I only realized that's not the case until I was like 14.
Yeah. All right. And why do you think it's the weirdest thing? Like when you grow up? Like why is that a weirdest thing that, like it's normal, right?
But do you think your parents would tell you, like you broke your hand, they're not going to cut it off? I mean, that's the part that was weird.
Yeah. But my weird one was actually learning how airplanes flew, right? I was just convinced for the longest time that it filled up with air like a balloon, and then it was basically let go, and that's how an airplane flew. And it took me years to figure out that, even till today, if you try to figure something out, how an engine works and how the flaps work, it's actually very, very complicated science for a kid to really understand how an airplane actually flies. That was my weird thing when I was a kid.
Very interesting. I mean, probably it's a blessing not to know. I mean,
it's not really weird, right? Because it's very complicated for a kid to actually understand it.
The weird thing was I was like a balloon. I thought they pumped it up with air and then let it go, and that's an airplane flew across the world. Do you got one?
No, but I recall my youngest son has been asking lately one question, which I don't really have a proper answer for, which is, where does God live?
Wow.
And I've been struggling to, is it in the sky or is it where? So it's, I'm sure what's going on in his head. It's
kids ask
unbelievable.
Kids ask
unbelievable.
And it comes out of innocence.
Yeah.
It comes out of innocence. Like, off topic a bit, but we're at one point stargazing in Wadi Ram, and my son was 7 years old, and he looks at like that. The possibility and the odds of there being no other living thing out there is almost zero. And I looked at him and was like, what? There's something out there. I was like, too dark of a conversation right now.
but it's the questioning, man. If you remember, they some companies do something called a 5-year-old day, where you act like a 5-year-old and you go in there and just ask questions. Why? Why do we have a printer here? Why do we go out at this time? Why do we have this meeting? And you just feel like it sometimes just asks you the existential questions where you then think, oh, actually, we don't need that. That's actually waste. And they end up cutting things out, right? 5-year-old day is what it's called.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So, the three of us are on LinkedIn, but Fahmi and I have been on this heated battle.
Shall I excuse myself?
It's a heated battle. So guys, if you're watching, come follow us on LinkedIn. We're in a race to get the most followers between all of us. Fahmi tried to catch up. He's almost half the way to where I am today, but he's trying his best. Moustafa is a hidden closet.
I go after quality, to be honest. I wouldn't follow Abhishek. If I were you, advise, don't follow Abhishek.
So as on this date, what's your follow account? Just before we continue?
No, I select who follows me. I go through, I filter, I drop. It's quality only.
All right, stay tuned for the LinkedIn battles that will ensue over
and
time.
They are not joking. That's not a joke.
Okay. So we're going to try a little bit more sort of a structure to our session going forward to try and see whether we can create value for all of us and for whoever listens. So today we want personal stories of one of the biggest moments of your lives. And I think maybe Fahmi or Moustafa, I don't know who's going to lead. The first time you decide to quit something, a job, something in life, what led to it, what came after, a raw story of really what you went through there, of quitting through something.
Let the entrepreneur go.
No, I was going to say, the floor is yours. I mean, when you asked me to think about that, and I actually started going back, and I realized I've quit 6 times jobs.
Wow.
And trying to think. I don't know if it's I don't think something I should be proud of. And I kept thinking which one was the most, impactful. And there was the funny one. There was the desperation one. There's a couple of them, the insecurity ones, where you quit before you thought you're not going to get the promotion or you're going to get sacked. But yeah, I mean, yeah,
so I'm going to dump her before she dumps me.
Exactly, 100%. At least 3 of those. So 6 times I've quit after professionally graduating university. Before that, I think I've quit at least twice while in university. The funniest one is probably my first professional job. I graduated. I got a consulting. I joined a company in Kuwait at the time. I left Canada. It was 99. Went to Kuwait. Fantastic role, financial analyst. CFO was this brute, was this really tough guy. And I come in, young kid, excited. I'm using Excel. I know the internet. And I walk into this department, 40 accountants. None of them has an idea what finance is or financial analyst. At the time I recall, they were bombing Iraq or something. And I would check online. I'd log in, I'd go to CNN and see the news. And I'd go say, they're doing this. And they're like, how do you find out? I was like, I logged in. Logged in where? I was like, the internet. And literally.
It was dial-up.
It was dial-up.
Still dial-up.
And everyone would come around, all these 40, 50, 60-year-olds, like amazed that I'm getting the news live. And 3 months into the job, I just knew I couldn't be there. I mean, it was so demoralizing. And at the time, Kuwait, to get your work permit, you had to leave the country, they issue the work permit, and you come back in. So I decided I'd go to Jordan until they issue that. I go to Jordan. A friend of mine was working for an investment bank. He said, you got to see what they're doing. It's fantastic. And I met this guy, you know him. He had set up an investment bank. I go to meet him and I fall in love with the city and the job. And I'm still employed in Kuwait, waiting for that work permit to come out. And I go, the founder of that investment bank is called Omar. And I go to Omar and say, I need a job. He looks like, we don't have openings. I'm like, I understand, but think about it. He's like, I'll think about it. I was in Jordan for 2-3 weeks. I went to his office probably 6-7 times. At the end, he figured, and at the end I was begging. I was saying, I don't care what you pay me. I just want to stay here. I want the job. And I think he figured it's cheaper to hire me than to just keep fielding my calls. His time was more expensive. He paid me something like ridiculous, like probably like $200-300. I took the job, started working without actually resigning from my job in Kuwait.
Oh, wow.
Because I was afraid of the brute CFO boss in Kuwait. What's he going to do when I tell him I quit? 2.5 months into it, and I still hadn't quit. So when the work permit came, the work permit took 3 months.
Okay.
So by the time the work permit came,
so you couldn't have gone anyway.
Yeah, I could have gone.
Okay.
When it came out, he called me. He's like, your work permit. I was like, yeah, give me a week. And a week passed, and he'd called me. He's like, Fahmi, we're waiting for you. When are you coming? And I dragged for another probably 2-3 weeks. And at the end, Omar was saying, you just can't do this. You got to quit. And I remember just calling Kamal Edelbi was his name. Tough guy. He's like, Mr. Kamal, I just need to tell you I'm not coming back. And the guy just lost it. So that was the first time I quit.
Wow. So what was the actual moment of the learning from that, right?
What the learning?
It's an unbelievable story. But how did that shape you going forward?
Obviously, I was afraid of confrontation. Number one. That taught me that if you want to quit, just do it up front. And do it in a way where, because basically, I mean, it was unfair for them.
Of course.
Second thing is really try to stick to a job. Like, I think my learning was I accepted the first job just because it sounded good without doing research what the job is, the culture, the people. And I think that became very important. Every job after that, I actually went to the office, met the people, got to make sure that, is it something I'm going to get along? Do I fit in? And that was the biggest learning.
Nice. I mean, what I took from that was the persistence and perseverance for something you wanted. I know it's not about quitting, but you actually found something you wanted. And that's also... That's a hardcore,
and I think that's
a great skill.
I think I always feel like I was unemployable, so I always fought for a job. Like, so I always pushed myself into some things.
Okay,
but you know what I like, and a lot of younger generation, maybe also when we were younger, we don't actually have the guts to do what you did. You didn't feel. Yes, maybe it took you a while to actually confront them. But you actually decided that this place is not for you very early on. And this is what I like.
I mean, it wasn't difficult. It was Kuwait 99.
But you know, so many kids feel trapped.
Yeah.
With the first job, because it's a good name, good brand, whatever. But
Or it's also coming through a recommendation, a relationship.
By the way, there was a big thing here because it was actually my father's
exactly right.
relation that he knew someone and they pushed, and that was part of the way.
Exactly.
So this is my learning. This is it takes, you're now making fun and saying, oh no, but this takes a lot of guts for you to actually take that decision.
I mean, I guess, but when you're young, you tend to jump off. Quite quick. I mean, I don't know. I think probably if it was later on in life, I wouldn't have been that irrational. You wouldn't take a job like pays you a third of what you did in a city that you don't know. Again, I think it worked out well at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great story. Is there anything you go back and tell yourself regarding this situation to do anything differently, given the facts were still the same? You talk about confrontation. Would you have done it earlier? You still think you did it in the right way?
I would have done it earlier, definitely.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have waited. I don't think that was a very classy move or anything. I think also sort of not thinking through with it, sort of also pushing to get that second job. I could have played that a bit differently.
Okay.
But because the second job, same thing. I was there for a year and a half, 2 years, and I quit without having something lined up. That was another thing. So
that's for next episode. What happens next?
We've got 6.
But that's important, and we can actually that's a topic for.
So what about you, Moustafa? Have you ever quit something? It doesn't have to be a job, but just quit something that really gave you a moment in life.
Well, the first thing that came to mind, speaking of that, is a job, right? And it's a lot more boring than Fahmi's story, but. When I decided to, and that was not by plan, it just happened, to move from corporate banking to investment banking. I had joined a well-reputable corporate bank, international name. I was doing very well in the corporate bank for 3-4 years. And then friends, and they called me up. Investment banking deals, it was really, really booming in the region, and that was back in Egypt. And they called me up and they come meet the senior management, and we want people like you. I was doing very well at the bank. Investment bank wasn't really known, booming, but so the decision.
Which year was this?
2006.
2006, okay.
2006. End of 2006. So to move from the 9 to 5, the certain, your limits, what's going to happen, to a less certain yet much more dynamic. Looking back, I'm glad I did it. And I think when you asked that question, what was the learning? I think it was the first step to actually to bet on myself.
Oh, very good. Self-belief at a young age doesn't come very out naturally. You have to be brought up in that environment, or you have to be driven to say that this is what I want to do, or you need great mentorship, right? That's at least been my experience. If you don't have one of those three things, it's very hard to build self-belief from that point of view. For me, I remember it was a very different thing. It was quitting a school sports team because I didn't like the coach, right? And that was a tough decision for me. I think I've spoken to you guys in the past that sports was like my everything to prove that I was, good at school because I wasn't the best at academics. And then taking that decision to say, I don't like the way the guy treats us, I don't like the way he speaks to me, was a big deal. I think in the end, it ended up doing more harm to me than better, because then I didn't get to do what I love, which is playing sports. But just taking that decision, I think, taught me that it's okay sometimes to take that kind of call. And having people that will back you when that decision happened. Because my mom was just like, why would you do that? Like, that's your happy thing. I was like, I just don't want to do this. And no more questions beyond that. And it was great. Yeah, because that was sort of my big learning on that.
Yeah, but so as much as you liked the sport, but you dislike the environment.
Yeah.
And you chose your well-being. Although you enjoyed the sport, but you chose your well-being. I'm sure it was a struggle.
Sure.
In the human connection, right, with the coach, and that disrupts anything, even if you were the greatest player on the team. Or
to what point? I mean, because it resonates a bit with what I did.
I was just going to say,
boss. I didn't like the people. I didn't fit the right culture, and I quit and I willed myself in another job because I needed a job. But if you think about it, there's a point where what sport was that?
Cricket.
Cricket.
Yeah.
You quit on it because you didn't like the coach.
Yeah.
But if you had, if you toughened it out, maybe it have taken you to a different level. Same with the job. I mean, a lot of people today would work investment banking in New York. Tough, horrible environment and so on. But they tough it out because they know 2 years, you come out much stronger in that. Where is that? When do you say, hold on, the culture, my well-being, my mental, my emotion is good? And when is it? No, I toughen it up.
But so my situation was slightly different there. I knew from the next term onwards, it was going to be a different coach. So I had to like basically sacrifice half of that year, right? Which is still a long time in school. But what was resonating back with what you said, how you learned from that. And the next time you went to take a job, you went and found the people. You figured out whether that culture fit you. You did that homework before you actually took on a job. And I think that's then a big part of exactly what he's saying, right? That you now know that, okay, this is what works for me. This is what I want to find. This is what I want to look for. And I think that's where we're becoming very more mature and intelligent as you grow up through time there. And that one decision of quitting something probably led to that. So, and there's the other side of it, yeah. If you stuck it out.
Someone comes to you today for advice.
Yeah.
22-year-old, got a job, a year into it, comes and says, listen, I can't do this. I hate the place. The people just keep gossiping. The boss doesn't give us time. But it's a great company. What would you advise to a 22-year-old?
Before I answer you, I look at it differently. See how that coach negatively impacted his sports time at school. I will not sports career here, but his time in sports at school. This is what your role as a CEO, as a leader, as a mentor, is to actually try to build that, to help that person thrive in that. In that. So this is your role.
True. But I'm saying if it was direct question, like today, what would you do? I mean, you have people who come to you for advice.
Yeah. It honestly, it's a case by case basis, and it depends on how strong the reasons are. If it's because I'm tired, I can't take it. No, that's not good enough.
No, they're never going to say that. But the question is the environment.
No, but if the real reason, you need to dig deeper, right? If the real reason is, oh, I'm tired, I can't take that anymore, I can't do all-nighters, that's a different story.
I mean, my view on that would be that, hey, you chose this. Okay, first, did you choose this, like this career, this company or whatever? How much time have you actually given it to really understand whether you like it or not? And let's say those are all like, yes. Then it's look, do you have an alternative, right? Comes down to the simple stuff. What's your best alternative to doing this today? And if it's just you're quitting because you have fallback and you have privilege, then I would say no, right? Go and figure out what you want to do next before you basically want to quit, right? I'm not saying you should just stay and be miserable for a long time, but go and figure out the next step, because sometimes it's about building your own strategy, building your own future, rather than just sitting and waiting for it to come to you.
Yeah, but again, we can argue. We can keep arguing, right?
Sure.
We can keep arguing about that. It's
there's no right or wrong
because
answer.
especially at a young age, this is the age where you take the risks.
Sure.
This is the age where you try multiple things. This is the age where you actually can afford to take that risk and leave a job without having anything else, right?
Absolutely.
This is the time.
Absolutely.
So
I just think the circumstance matters a lot, right? Of what sort of situation you're in and what you want to do. But it comes down to, right, like I remember in university in England, where I grew up, like we said this some time ago, that at the age of 16, you decide what you want to commit to in life, right? It was too early, right? So some people first year in university said, hey, my course is just not for me, right? And they would drop out and they basically do year one again or whatever it might be. But all that takes courage, right? So one guy just realized, I don't want to do economics, I want to be a pilot, right? So he dropped out of university completely, became a commercial pilot, right? But he knew after a full year saying economics is not for me, you know? So was that bad to quit? I don't know. Today he seems happy. He's doing his own thing. He's found his own path in life. But on the flip side, increasingly more and more people that I grew up with are still, in my view, fairly lost. They don't really know what they're doing and where they're going.
But that's, again, that's something we touched on previously. It's just, I think the educational system and the way the structure is just very outdated.
Well, I mean, moving on from that, and we get a bit older, right? Very different topic. All of us have lived now in Dubai for a long time. How long?
11 years now.
11 years.
23.
Almost 25. And the concept of, as you get into these years of your 30s, 40s, 50s, why is it harder and harder and more important than ever to have friendships that are so valuable, and why can we not keep those, right? And why is it so hard to find? What in your view is making it harder to keep friends? When is it a transient city like Dubai? Is it the fact that we get pickier as we get older? Is it the fact that we all have different priorities, different social economic privileges or stages in life? What's your view on that, right? Because friendship, we all thrive it, we all crave it, don't we? But I hear from many people that it gets harder and harder. Do you feel that?
Does it get harder to make friends? I don't know if it gets harder to make friends. I think the kind of cities you live in plays a factor. So the environment of the city, how the society is set up, how hectic it is. So in a metropolitan like Dubai, New York, London, I think they all have the same thing. You don't have that coziness, and that's something we can probably talk about. In terms of, is it harder? I think my view and thinking about it is different stages. As you get older, you become a bit more selfish with your time, and you know yourself a bit more. At 20, you look for breadth and as wide of a circle as possible, because you're looking at the short-term satisfaction. For my 20s, that was it. How many groups am I in? What are we doing tomorrow? And so on. 30s was the consolidation phase, where I'm getting married and now we're merging friends and groups. And okay, how does that shape out? Because now it's not about what are you doing? How's the combined entity and who do you like? Or not?
Absolutely. The unit.
The unit.
The single unit.
That's a big one, I think, in the 30s. 40s is when you start looking for depth, at least for me. It's more about the depth of the relationship as opposed to the breadth and the way. Like, I mean, we were just talking about it. My wife was trying to plan my 50th. She's like, we'll do this party. We're inviting 100 people. And I was like, 80 of those I don't want to even have lunch with, let alone invite them. And I think you become a bit more selfish with your time. But in terms of, can you make friends? I think you still can. I think on the contrary, you probably are. You're less compromising. So the friends you make are probably more solid.
Yeah. So that's probably the follow-up question. Do you feel you have the depth of friendship that you would have envisioned yourself having when you were in your mid-20s? Like, we're going to grow old with these friends together. Are the same people you thought you looked like that in your life in your early 20s are the ones you're with today? Or at least the quality of relationships?
What do you think?
Very cool questions, I have to say. You know that this topic obviously has been discussed time and time again, and they say as the world gets more and more connected, more people feel isolated today, right? Which is very weird. For the first question, let me say I agree. It gets a little harder, yes. But it's definitely not impossible, or it's not. It gets harder because when you grow up, you start building your emotional wall, right? You become less open, theoretically less vulnerable. Life happens, so actually you get your time is more precious. You have the commitments, the family, parents. So it gets, so yes, definitely that's harder. Versus the first 20, 25 years, you're actually in the gathering. You're gathering friends, gathering people, gathering, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. On the contrary, the friends and this is where I agree with Fahmi, that the friends you actually make when you grow older, they're probably much stronger relationships because they are based on, after all that, what I just mentioned, and you still consider them friends, then they are actually close friends, right?
This is twice you've agreed with me over the last 2 weeks.
I don't know who's the contrarian anymore. We might have to rename them. So my view is a little bit, my perspective is slightly different just because I think
just because you just turned 30 anyway, so you don't have a lot of experience.
Maybe. But also because I actually grew up here, so I went to school here, right? I have all my family in the same city, very fortunate with that. And for us, it was, obviously you had school friends, then everybody went off to university, came back, and they were in different parts of the world. And like you said, 20s was, go as wide as you can and figure it out. Whatever you're doing. And then for me, the big change came in marriage where, I remember somebody telling me, I think it was my sister, said, now you are one unit. Everything is we, right? There's no I. And then you have to amalgamate the groups or whatever. But the biggest dip that came when it comes to friendship was when you started having kids at different times, right? Because kids is a huge change in your social life and how you can spend time and do things. Some people are still sort of acting young and single, or just young, newly married and going for trips here and there. And you were still stuck at home, with babies and going through that phase of life. As another friend of mine said, we were suffering while you guys were out having fun. I was like, okay, fine. But then what happened was, as the city got bigger, geographic location started determining who you hung out with. That was a big change for us, right?
So, and just to clarify, but you guys had a group of friends that you were actually like a couple of couples that you always...
No, it was a whole group of school friends, and then the people got added through, and then people started getting married, right? Then geographic location in Dubai started having an impact of where you hung out.
Within Dubai.
Within Dubai, right? Because for convenience and whatever. And then the other one was your expendable income also started impacting the friends you would hang out with, right? The people, because everyone was on a different path and what they could do or not. And then as you got older and you got 30s, 40s, it then became common interests that actually brought the most people together. I mean, we're all part of, like, say, YP or whatever. That's a common interest to a certain degree, right? And you find people more like-minded, and that whole statement of, your vibe finds your tribe, right? And who is your tribe, right? Whether it be sports, whether it be travel, whether it be, things that you like to do, business. And I think that's now going to a point where there's only maybe 6 to 8 people in the world that I would call my true friends, right? And those people, huh?
Thank you.
Oh, for sure. My true friends that you could do anything with, that you go to with. And that's where this question sort of came from, right? Is that normal? Is that not? Is that only us? What do you guys think? Yeah?
I don't have an opinion, but to one of my mentors.
Why? What's wrong?
It's too late. It's too late.
So, Warren Rustad, I'm a big fan of him. He's been mentoring me for a while. And his whole thing is about to build successful families and building successful relationships. And some of the things I've learned from him over the last 2 years is how to build these friendships. And what is this friendship? Two pillars, which, and as we speak, you reflect on my life and you realize, okay, it makes sense. One, obviously, is experiences. People you experience things with you end up having very solid bonds. So I have some friends who are in college. We've disconnected for years and then we come back and we're just as solid. But the other one that I find very powerful, and in a place like Dubai, you actually have to put the effort into it. This I've learned just living in the region, because I realized people in places like Riyadh or Kuwait or Bahrain, very close. Their friendships are very intimate. Dubai didn't have this. When I moved here, it was very interesting. And the trick is, when you invite people over into your house, and where most of your interaction is within a home of someone, the relationship is extremely deeper, extremely more sincere. And that's why we go, again, places like London, New York, Hong Kong. Friendships aren't it's probably a bit transactional, a bit transient. And this is Warren's big philosophy in life. Building successful families and a life is make your home the center of gravity. Make your kids want to bring all their friends over. You invite and host people continuously, because the minute you let them into your house, you've immediately sort of let down a guard, and that builds very strong friendships.
I love that.
I agree on that.
Love that. Breaking bread is one of the most amazing things that you can do to establish human connection.
And right? Why? I mean, you start thinking, why? I mean, I remember when he'd throw these at me and I'd go back and start, and he'll tell me, think about it, and we'll talk in 2 weeks. And you start, why? And then you realize the minute they come to your house, to an extent, you're sort of exposing yourself. How things work in your house, and there's a bit of vulnerability in having people over all the time and their kids come over. So that's something I've learned and taken to heart. And now we make it a point that our home center, we tell our friends, make it as fun as possible, have everyone come over whenever they want to come.
Nice.
That's very nice. Yeah, and it's very true. On that note, one thing we didn't touch upon, so I want old friendships. I want to say I'm very fortunate. I have very, very close friends that remain my friends until today, and they are school and university friends. And this is something I really treasure.
Yeah.
But the question is, all friendships fade away, in your opinion, or?
My life has actually been determined, and I think you guys know this. I'm an experience guy. I thrive and live on building experiences for the people I love, right? I didn't really figure that out until much more recently in my life. But to answer that question, the people I shared unique moments with that till today, let's say we all still remember whoever was there, I still think we have some commonality. You have drifted now. You've grown into different people. And I think age is a big deal, right? Of just growing in your exposure in your environment. You grow into different characters and people. But I think that commonality of some foundation of a memory or experience still allows you to build that relationship. But would they still be my best and oldest friends? Probably not. Also because it was in a different country that I don't really go back to as much anymore, and everyone sort of moved around. So for me, it's not as much, I would think.
So it does fade away a little bit.
Yes, yes,
okay.
it does.
I mean, naturally, it'll fade away if you don't work. I mean, I don't know if it fades away. It can always reconnect. I have a friend who we grew up since we were 2 years old. We speak probably twice a year at best.
Yeah.
But in my head, I could still go back to him.
Yeah.
He comes back to me. We probably a lot of things we don't agree on anymore. But we still have that. And whenever I travel over and I'm in Canada, we immediately click. I'll call him for anything. I'll call his family, his brothers. So we have that. College, I have 2 friends who I make it a point at least once a year to meet up with them. I don't think it fades away. If it fades away, I don't think it was a sincere friendship. I think it's just
fair.
I think,
and there's a statement in that, right? So some people, whenever you meet, you just pick up where you left off. Doesn't matter what's happening in the middle. Right? That's rare, though.
Absolutely.
I think that's very rare, and those are special, right? Like no time has passed.
How do you test it? How do you test a friendship if it's real or not?
For me, it's travel together.
I mean,
so there is an Arabic saying that is a bit, I can say, live, but 3 main things that I won't mention them, but 3 main
we
things.
can edit.
I'll say them later. But 3 main things. Actually, the longer version are 7. So how do you know a real friend? If you travel, there are like 7 things, but some of them are off limits. But it's very interesting. I can share offline.
Oh, you need to share with us.
No.
Come on, bro. The people want to
We
know,
cannot.
Mustafa.
We're here. We have some young, hoping to have some young audience.
I mean, the kids are our biggest fan. I think one of the things I've learned is, am I willing, and again, it's part of, I think, the aging part and the reflection and the selfishness, am I willing to go out of my way to see that person? And there's a friend, honestly, like whenever I'm traveling, I'll make it a point that, it's an extra hour. I'll fly and see him for 2 days. And that's sort of, I think, to me was the easiest.
That's a nice barometer, right? Am I willing to do that from that point?
Yeah, investing in it, whatever it is. Investing in it. Are you willing to invest in it? Time, invest in it.
Yes.
Time, effort, call, message, whatever. Yeah.
And there's no vested interest. Because one of the things Dubai does to you, whether we like it or not, and this is something I initially struggled to deal with in Dubai. When I moved, I was living in Jordan before I came here. And in Jordan, it's a very small society. People just sort of just get to know each other. There's no business, really. It's not about business. It's not about work. It's just a very small community. And I came here, and for the first probably 8 years, I struggled because I felt every relationship was transactional. Every dinner we'd go to, the question still today, when someone asks you in Dubai, where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah.
You can, a lot of places in the world, these 2 things are not asked.
Yeah.
Because that's where you're from, and nobody asks what you're doing because they know.
I think that's the challenge. Go to a dinner you don't know people at and see how long you can go without asking, what do you do?
Yeah.
There's a supper club. I'd recommend people to do that. What's his name? Kuvi, you know him, Chef.
Kuv, Chef Kuv, yes.
I highly recommend, because he does that dinner. You come in, you are not allowed to say where you're from or what you do.
Yeah.
And you sit through a dinner with strangers, and it's just such a tough
I love that. And I totally agree. And you're certainly not defined by what you do.
Yeah, but the preconceived notions that come with it, right? Exactly. Yeah, and that's what they're trying to get away. The bias that's there.
But it's here. Do you feel that when you travel to...
For sure.
When you're in Cairo, do you feel that? Do people ask you that? Or when you're in Kenya or when you're in India? Rarely do people ask you that.
No, but it's there. There.
I think culturally it just comes out as a question, right? I mean, I do it myself, right? I ask everybody, right?
But you're a very born and bred person.
I think it is.
But you know what the problem is? When this question is asked, the conversation goes somewhere. When this question is not asked, the conversation remains where it was going. It doesn't change. Try it out. Not asking, you'll keep your conversation about whatever you were talking about, cricket, or as soon as you mention what do you do, okay, and then Oh yes, my friend was also in logistics.
It defines the
you know,
relationship.
It
defines
then it
the
goes
path.
in a limited
A path.
Yeah, they try to
path.
find the commonality
Yeah.
through that main
My
new
kids
fact.
always make fun of me that I chat a lot. So wherever we are, wherever we're traveling, whoever's around, I'll just open a conversation and they cringe, like whoever it is. But I find it so interesting. You're nodding, obviously, you know. So yeah, my wife and my kids all cringe. The best conversations I've had. And funny enough, the Americans are like that. You'd sit in the US, wherever you are,
Yeah.
and they're just-
Unbelievable
Yeah.
and I
confidence.
love it.
Unbelievable
And they
confidence.
just talk.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the most interesting conversations still today. My daughter and son. This was 2018. So Omar was 2020. So Omar was 4, Ghali was 10, and we went down to the laundry. We're in the US. We go down to the laundry, and the guy was there, and we start chatting. And it turns out he's a truck driver, and he tries long haul. And as we speak, where are you from? I tell him where he's from, and we get into this discussion. And we sat in the laundromat for probably an hour and a half. And both we leave there. Ghali and Omar go to their mom, and they're like, "The mom." Dad just sat there for an hour and a half talking to this stranger. But we got into such interesting discussions.
Magic. Magic.
And until today, you remember it. That tells you a lot.
Of course. I've learned so much from it. Like, it was interesting. You learned something.
Awesome. All right. So now we're going to move on to another section, right? We're going to experiment this section. It's what's been happening in the world, right? So what's happening in the world is the next segment. Okay. So today, this one's an interesting one for me. The Worldwide Developer Conference happens every June.
The
Apple
Worldwide
Developer Conference.
That's the Apple
WWDC. Exactly. So Apple holds it every year in June, where they basically launch all their new software, their new iPhone, and everything that's sort of happening across all of the ecosystem. I remember growing up, that was something I waited for. I used to stay up late at night. I used to stream it live, and it was where all the groundbreaking things would get launched. And we all know over the past few years, Apple have sort of been hinted at, low on innovation, not much going on. Today, they seem to be losing in the AI race. And as consumers, so today I want you to look at it from a consumer standpoint. Historically, Apple were never first to bring music to the phone with the iPod, but then they owned that market. They were never first to bring the smartphone. They owned that market. Never first to bring the tablet, and they own that market, right? To a certain degree, those are the 3 synonymous products that they've built over. Their theory is, we don't have to be the first, but we'll be the best when you deliver it. Do you think today's consumers, from how you're using today, ChatGPT and others, that Apple now has a space to change your consumer behavior if they get it right, which is still not right today, they said. They're still going to be out maybe end of the year, early next year, when they have Apple Intelligence running on your phone. What do you think as a consumer, right? Do you think they have room to win? Or have they just lost their way?
Way above our pay grade.
As a consumer, you use it every day, right? Would you change now with what you have? I mean, I can give my opinion, but I would love to hear your views.
I'm still thinking about friendships.
I had to move you along.
Reconsidering the friendship with Abhishek. I've always been a huge fan of Apple. And I think for me, the transition to Windows 2 years ago was very tough. And I still keep complaining about Windows. But I think Apple's strength probably wasn't because they were the first to introduce, but they had a seamless hardware ecosystem. And that you see cracks in. Today, as a consumer, I'm just a consumer. Never would I have thought in my wildest dream, I'll move away from an iPhone. Today, I get these thoughts. I get these thoughts. I'm still far away from completely detaching, but I just feel like their hardware and the ecosystem that I love because it was seamless is not top of the game. I don't know what's out there. I don't know how easy it is. And to me, that makes me doubt what they're projecting out there, because they can have the best music streaming, they can have the best ChatGPT. If the core foundation of what they have, the seamless, slick hardware that doesn't glitch and easy to use, isn't there, that's the foundation of everything they've launched. And I think they've lost sight of the prize or what their strength is.
Yeah, look, they haven't innovated for a long time. What was the Apple thing called? The goggles or whatever it was.
Oculus?
No. That
didn't work.
Yeah, which is complete failure, which was their only new product they launched after a long time.
Yeah.
So have they lost the ability to innovate? So what's your view as a consumer?
Honestly, I didn't give it much thought. And
I'm so glad you read the agenda before. Thank you, guys. Committed to this
when
cause.
you get the agenda an hour before
recording.
Great.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I see them as taking, and especially after what you said, they are taking maybe a safety-driven approach that they want to come to the market with the winning formula rather than being the aggressive innovator, which OpenAI are, for example, are, would that work? Maybe. Have they done it before? And as you just gave a lot of examples where they came to the market and dominated. Yeah, so I don't see a reason why they wouldn't. But at the same time, the pace of advancement and development in that space, all in all, is extremely fast, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know until when they can keep waiting.
Exactly.
That's the
because Apple's taking the high road on privacy, right? They want to be very high road on privacy, and they want to make sure they do it right for the consumer. Exactly. So they can't really jeopardize that in any sort of way. So my bet is, just as we wrap up this segment, is that I think they will end up doing something quite significant, and they will sort of win of how they integrate it within the app ecosystem domestically on the phone, right? Rather than having it be connected to the internet. But I feel like I bored you through this segment. I mean, this is, let's say, science corner over here.
It's good that that's segment, so we know your view. I guess that was the point.
So, any more thoughts on this? Right?
Winning, playing safe, what do you call it? What do you say?
Privacy.
They're playing safe. They're playing just because of their size. There's no innovation. They don't need to innovate in the hardware. They just need to make, and that's what the beauty of Steve Jobs. And honestly, after Steve Jobs, the company was it was based on.
It was a supply chain execution organization. It's unbelievable.
And the simplicity.
Yes.
It was really, he drove that. And it's one of these companies where you really see no continuity after him. You've lost it. You look at Google, they've continued and they grew much more. Amazon, I think it's gone beyond Jeff Bezos. Steve Jobs, I think it was him.
He was the wild innovator.
Today, I think the only thing why they continue being who they are, because people are locked into Apple, and to move out of the iCloud is tougher. There's that friction point, but that friction point at some point.
Yeah, but this is a great tool to use, right? That's why they can instantly dominate the market. Just
two things
because of the iPhone.
Okay, very simple question. 10 years ago, how often did you change your iPhone?
And I want to say I was one of the very late movers to iPhone, actually.
But every time a model came out, did you change it? Did you upgrade your phone?
I was an every year guy. Now I'm every 3 years.
But you're not the exception. You're the majority now. You are the majority.
For sure. They have issues with that.
So that's your first thing. Second thing is, how many people today do you know that have actually left iPhone?
Yeah.
I mean, Samsung today, look at it. Huawei, look at it.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, today you sit on a table and probably 40% aren't using iPhone. So that's why I think they will have, unless they do something drastic happens over the next 2-3 years, you'll start seeing them slowly decline. And AI, I think, is going to be counterproductive for them, not the thing that saves them.
Well, look, remains to be seen. You've had 3 predictions here. Let's see where it goes. Yeah. Look, guys, Mustafa's not a fan of this section of the show. Yes. We'd love your opinion, and tell us if you'd like any other topics to come up on this. Yeah. What's our recommendation for this week? Something that you have heard, read, listened to, watched that you think our audience would like? What's your pick of the week? Wow. Well done for coming.
I have. I'm waiting for him. Okay. So one of the shows I've seen, and probably you don't want to watch the whole show, but there's a specific episode with a specific clip of that episode, which I've put on my LinkedIn, by the way. I've actually streamed that part. If you go to my LinkedIn,
you're even selling yourself.
If you can go to
shameless LinkedIn plug right in there.
If you do go to my LinkedIn, it was posted sometime in early June, I think. Landman. Landman is a show about basically oil. It's the same guy who did Yellowstone and a lot of Westerns, but Landman's about oil in Texas. And there's a clip that's just one of the smartest, most intelligent dialogues. And I love that. I mean, I haven't seen anything like that since Sorkin's shows, The West Wing and The Newsroom. And he goes on and talks about how windmills are so bad for the economy. He's explaining why people talk about renewable and windmills, and he goes and talks about the data and the fact that how much oil it takes to actually put the windmill, the lubrication for the windmill, and it's sort of you're whitewashing basically renewable, but it's oil. Just that show actually is one of the smarter shows I've seen in quite a while. Landman.
Oh, interesting. Landman.
It's on,
Thank you.
the challenge is it's not easy to access here. It's on Paramount Plus. We don't get Paramount Plus.
Okay. Fair enough.
I don't do use
Our
VPNs.
audience are global, so
Definitely.
All 8 of them.
And I
Go
don't
for
use
it.
VPN.
What's up for you?
So actually, with what we spoke about and the quitting, and there's an interesting book, a very easy read. Famous writer, I forgot her name now, but it's called The Pivoteer.
The Pivoteer.
The Pivoteer, yeah.
Okay.
And it basically, she's taking you through a year, day by day, very short chapters. Each chapter is a day, where every day has a small, short message that it's the year of change. You can change,
Nice.
and change is not that bad. And it's a nice read for that purpose.
Very cool. So mine a little bit more serious this week from you guys making fun of me the last time. But it was actually from a experience at work in the last week, where Marshall Goldsmith's book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, right? I've read it 2-3 times in my life, and it just resonates so strongly sometimes, right? And it's just a reminder that sometimes, you look back at whatever the journey was that got you here, but it's not what's going to get you to the next part, right? And you have to redesign, rethink, rebuild yourself. And it's a powerful belief that I've always looked at. Marshall Goldsmith's books are really good for that simplicity, and I enjoy that. So sometimes I go back to read that. All right. So one builds empires and roasts your logic. One counts coins while pretending not to care. One talks too much and somehow makes all sense. Together, we're your unlikely, most favorite podcast hosts. Thank you for listening to Game On.
The soon to be number one podcast.
Soon to be number one podcast. Well,
and I would say in the world, but let's start with the region.
For now, in our opinion.
And that's what matters.
Thank you for watching Game On, Life, Leadership, and Laughs. This is our first episode. Like, subscribe, and tell your friends about it if you like it. And comment below if you want any topics or things for us to talk about in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.